examination, all of us know optic disc and retinal nerve fiber layer assessment and documentation are very vital for diagnosis and monitoring of glaucoma. And clinical and scientific evidence suggests that optic nerve head and retinal nerve fiber layer changes occur before the standard visual field loss. In ocular hypertension retinal study, the first endpoint achieved was more often in the optic disc than the visual field in both treated group and in the observation group. So how do we examine? It can be examined with direct ophthalmoscope, but preferably we advocate with a slit lamp biomicroscope using 90 diopter or a 78 diopter lens. And the photograph can be taken for the documentation purpose and imaging techniques. Commonly, the optical coherence tomography is done. And what are the common entities that can result in confusion while evaluating a glaucomatous optic disc? It may be physiological because there is a great overlap between normal and the abnormal variant. Normal physiological variation in the cup, in the neuroretinal limb, or in the peripapillary area of the retina can occur, which can be confused with glaucoma, or glaucoma can be misdiagnosed. Or there are developmental anomalies like optic disc split or coloboma that can be confused with glaucoma, or glaucoma can be missed. And non-glaucomatous optic atrophy, like here it's a post-papilledemic optic atrophy that can be confused with glaucoma. Either there will be overdiagnosis or they are missing something which is more dangerous because the cup is not more, so that we miss the finding. Seeing the pallor, sometimes people miss the finding and we are missing some devastating conditions. So one should be very careful. So a systemic evaluation of the optic nerve is always important, not to miss the diagnosis of glaucoma or not to overdiagnose it. So what to look for in optic nerve? As usual, it's the optic disc size first, then cup disc ratio, and most important is the neuroretinal limb and the nerve fiber layer defect, disc hemorrhage, and the vascular pattern and the peripapillary atrophy. And it should be done in every visit. And coming to the cup disc ratio, the suspicion of glaucoma occurs when the ratio exceeds more than 0.7 because it is seen only in 10% of the population. Not that always 0.7 is glaucomatous, but suspicion should arise. And the difference between the two eyes is most important because glaucoma is a disease of asymmetry. When the asymmetry is more than 0.2, which is seen only in 1% of the population, and particularly in a small optic disc. I repeat the term small optic disc because in a small optic disc, even 0.4 cupping is abnormal. In this case, in the right eye, we had a small optic disc and the cupping is almost 0.75 and the intra-rim loss with a large separate nerve fiber layer defect with a disc hemorrhage. But in the left eye, it's only 0.4 cupping. So if one is examining only one eye, then in a small optic disc, so very high chance we will miss it. So always examine both the eyes, compare both the eyes, and be careful in small optic disc particularly. And this is also a small optic disc, and here there is pallor. Always when we see pallor, we think it's a non-glaucomatous optic atrophy. But when we see both the eyes, compare both the eyes and take a proper history and do a proper examination, these patients presented to us with diminished vision in the right eye, and she gave a history of severe headache, vomiting twice, and she was given some intravenous injection in the local setup. So when we examined carefully, it was found the pressure was in the 30s in the right eye, in the left eye it was 22, and this patient, after careful gonioscopy, it was found there was 360-degree angle closure. It's a case of PSEG, and there is intermittent angle closure, and it is a case of primary angle closure glaucoma. So one has to see both the eyes, and pallor can occur in case of glaucoma in primary angle closure attack is there. So one should be very careful, examine systematically, and comprehensive eye examination is a must. And coming to the neuroretinal rim, we all know the ISMT pattern is followed in 83% of cases. The inferior rim is thickest, followed by the superior rim because the arcuate fibers are there, and most thinnest is the temporal rim. But in small optic disc, always there is high chance one may miss. And there may be deviation in the ISMT pattern, but in the small optic disc, one should be very careful. The rim loss, it's a shallow cupping, but the rim is totally lost. There is not with a very big nerve fiber layer defect. But when in a VGOPD without dilatation, sometimes people see they miss these findings. So always examine in a dilated people, not to miss these findings, because we know glaucoma is irreversible cause of blindness. So one should see in a dilated people, not to miss all these findings, and if possible in a red-free light. And neuroretinal limb dross can be focal like a notch, or it may be diffuse. In a diffuse case, sometimes there is suturization or shallow cupping. Sometimes this with very advanced case also missed. This case is a small optic disc with a shallow cupping, but the total infrared rim is lost with peripapillary atrophy and with a large NFL defect. So when there is shallow cupping, small optic disc, one must be careful. So I emphasize the point to examine in dilated people and with a 90 diopter lens, not with the direct ophthalmoscope, and one should try to examine in a green light, that is red-free light, to appreciate this nerve fiber layer defect. And this picture is not very good, but what I want to emphasize, this patient came to us for a routine follow-up presbyopia correction, but here in the right eye there is already advanced glaucoma, and both inferior and superior rim loss with the corresponding visual field defects and changes in the OCT also. But in the left eye, it's a 0.75. This is a small optic disc. It's a 0.75 cup also. There were changes, but it's not showing in the OCT picture. So one should see both the eyes and be very careful in a small optic disc. And only cupping is not important. Spice has given the concept of disc damage likelihood ratio, so that emphasis will be given to the neuroretinal limb. What is this disc damage likelihood ratio? That is a rim width in the thinnest part. Suppose this is 0.2 divided by the diameter of the optic disc. So if it's 0.2 and the whole diameter is 1, then it becomes 0.2. So it is a rim width, thinnest rim width divided by the diameter of the optic disc. That is more important because we give emphasis to the neuroretinal rim. And when there is a loss in one sector, suppose the sector becomes 0, then it becomes 0. Then we find out how much is the extent of the damage. And coming to the vascular changes, observe the vascular changes very carefully. The varieting, the overpass of the vessel, the bearing of the circumlinear vessels, the nasalization of the vessels. All these things should be looked into very carefully. Then nerve fiber layer defect, the best examined with the red field light. So the striations, brightness, and visibility of the retinal blood vessels is become very prominent. It may be slit-like, waist-taper defect, or diffuse slit-like defect. If they're smaller than the size, the diameter of the blood vessel, then that should be omitted. And coming to the retinal nerve fiber layer loss, they may be focal or they may be diffuse like this. In a large optic disc, this may be missed. There is a diffuse loss in the enlarged cupping along with a diffuse NFL defect. So in a large disc also, some might think this is a large optic disc, large cup. So this might be missed. So this is also asymmetry between the two eyes. If one examines this eye and hurriedly examines this eye, so one may think this is a normal eye and one may miss this increased cupping, the nerve fiber layer thinning, and the NFL defect. So examine two eyes and be very careful for the asymmetry and the NFL defect. And accordingly, you will plan for your examination and treatment. And one should be careful in the myopic patients. We get, all of us know, we get the parapapillary atrophy, like beta zone atrophy is more important in case of glaucoma. But in myopia cases, the very high chance of missing out the glaucoma because the rim size is here, not the outside thing. So one should follow the blood vessels, and there is shallow cupping. So, and peripapillary atrophy is there. So misjudging the disc and misjudging the area of neuroretinal rim damage and the NFL defect. So one should be very careful in case of myopia also. And coming to the disc hemorrhage, this is splinter-separated hemorrhage and reported by Duns, and this indicates the signs of activity. And we find these cases usually with the NTG. Whenever there is a disc hemorrhage, maybe in case of early glaucoma and advanced glaucoma, we find it. And either there is already the nerve fiber layer defect, or there is high chance it will occur in future. So one should be more aggressive in the treatment plan. But it's not seen in such advanced glaucomas. But here we have one case with a disc hemorrhage. So most of the times the disc hemorrhage, small disc hemorrhage or in abnormal position, one should find out what are the other causes, whether the patient is diabetic or not, or hypertensive or not, BRBO or not, PVD is there or not, other causes one should find out. And but photographs should be taken in each visit better, because sometimes in clinical examination small disc hemorrhages are missed. And always differentiate between glaucomatous from the non-glaucomatous optic disc, because pallor is more than cupping, and it's often difficult for experienced surgeons. Also, they sometimes miss out these findings. And here is another case I've given one in the left eye. Here optic disc cupping is very much normal with a healthy nerve fiber layer. This patient is known to me with a family history. His father was glaucomatous, his brother and sister, they were glaucomatous. So that's why he was under follow-up. The right eye, he had a inferior rim thinning, which was shown in OCT also, and in the superior arcuate scotoma. But in the left eye, his visual field shows the central scotoma because of the peripapillary CNVM. But the optic disc is normal. But sometimes what we do when we see a CNVM or such big lesion, we concentrate on the lesion only, not on the optic disc. So this eye might be missed. So there is a high risk case, family history, and the IOP was raised. There is structural changes here in the field also correlating, but we sometimes concentrate on these things and we miss the finding in the other eye, and we miss the diagnosis totally, and we delay the treatment. So examine the eye as a total, do a systematic examination, be it systematic evaluation is always important. So we always follow this rule. Observe the scleral limb to know the size of the optic disc. The rim is important, and retinal nerve fiber layer analysis, region of peripapillary atrophy, and retinal and optic disc hemorrhage. In the systematic way, if we'll go, we'll not miss out the findings. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an elaborative talk.